Hi, everybody. Welcome back for another fantastic virtual tasting with Becker Vineyards. I'm your host, Rebecca Nelson, Wine Club Director here at the winery. And with us tonight, we have some fabulous panelists. We're going to be going over some wines that we lovingly refer to at the winery as the 3Cs, three vintages, or three varietals, from the same vintage that are kind of they're the first times we've ever done these varietal specific wines at the winery. And we went to our tasting room staff, our managers in the tasting room, and asked them what their picks would be for this week. And they all said the 3Cs because they're wines that people ask about because they haven't had them before, and they're ones that we really want to get the word out, and we want everybody to try them because they're just absolutely fantastic. So we have our 2017 Counoise, our 2017 Carignan, and our 2017 Cinsaut, and each one of them is from a different vineyard as well, which is going to be a lot of fun to look at also. With us tonight, we have, of course, Dr. Richard Becker. We also have Jon Leahy, our winemaker. And we have tonight from our tasting room management team, we have Bobby Totten. So I'm going to turn it over to Jon and Dr. Becker to get us started, you guys. Cheers.
Cheers, Rebecca. Thank you for that lovely introduction. I would like to welcome everybody back for, you didn't tell us the week, Rebecca. Is it week 32 or 32? Okay, week 32, and we're going strong. So, Dr. Becker, would you like to give us a few opening words, sir?
Yes, you know, these broadcasts, I guess we'd call them that, began in response to the pandemic, and in response to the people, the wonderful people of New York who all stayed home and came out on their balconies at 7 o'clock and tried to do something that was pleasant for people around them, play the violin, sing, etc., recite poetry. And so now we're 8 or 9 months into this, and I think what ought to be said is that this is probably the period of greatest danger and risk for us. This is the moment when we need to redouble all of our efforts, and there's so much temptation to want to escape from the sequestration that's come from this. And we just need to absolutely know that this is the time to wear our masks, to stay separated, stay out of crowds, stay out of indoor environments with people, and have a glass of wine.
I think I'll second that motion.
Thank you.
Thank you. Basically what you're saying, Doc, is be antisocial and drink.
That's it.
Okay. So Bobby, I want to welcome you, sir. I have the great good fortune to work with Bobby on a regular basis, and I think we're all very much better off for it at the winery with all the work that he's done. So this week is the tasting room management team's kind of pick, if you will. And so Bobby, welcome. What the format that we're going to follow tonight, we're going to start with the Counoise. And we're going to go through, we're just going to ask for your opinions. And if I can pull up the video feed from our broadcast on Facebook, I'll answer questions, but I'm having a little difficulty with that right now. So maybe I'll just make some questions up that people ask. Anyway, if you want to pick up the Counoise, give it a swirl, a sniff, and a taste, and let's get started.
You know, Jon, I think one thing that could be said about the 3Cs is that, of course, they begin with all these wines with the letter C, but we then found 3 seascapes, right? And right. So this is also called the Nautical Series, 3 wonderful watercolors by Tony Bell. One of my plans is to make some sort of a reproduction of the many beautiful watercolors that we've made labels from. I think that would make an interesting book.
You know, I think it would make a really nice coffee table book, especially with the history behind why we chose it, you know, things like that, the vineyards that it comes from, some, you know, I don't think I've ever seen one done before, and that doesn't mean anything. It just means I've not seen it if it has been done. So
maybe the Mouton labels, Jon, you know, the famous artist series at Mouton.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know, Doc, I did have a little more lowbrow reading than that. So, Bobby, I'm going to start with you. So, give us your opinion on the Counoise, sir.
I think the Counoise is beautiful. It was kind of a shock when it was in barrel, when we were trying it in barrel and in tank when we
Whoa, wait a minute. You were in the barrels?
Well, you know,
He doesn't know.
I had special permission from
Rachel.
our
From
our
Rebecca?
team.
From Rachel.
Yeah, Rachel. Not throwing anybody under the bus now. So
It's too late.
no, I've had the great fortune of working with production team for a couple years as well. So I mean, it's I think having a great relationship with you as well, John, working together to getting the wines together and pump overs and all that fun stuff. So being a little bit a part of that, I think 2017 harvest, it was so cool to be a part of, to see this new varietal come in, which we haven't had before. And I think that it would so much fruit to it. It reminded me of a rosé when we received it in.
Mm-hmm.
And it just phenomenal. It turned out a great wine.
I agree with you. I think it did turn out a great wine. And for a little background, so I got to use Bobby's labor in the back, and now he knows the definition of a cellar rat. So Rebecca, what do you think of the Counoise? What's your impressions?
The Counoise has definitely become one of my favorites since we released this. And like Bobby was saying, Rachel let us taste out of barrel when it was still in barrel.
Look, you're not afraid to throw your friend under the bus.
Not at all. Fine. But it was one of those things that we were encouraged to try it because everybody was like, you've got to taste this. This is something you haven't had before. Typically, this is a blending grape. You don't find it on its own. And it was really remarkable to see and kind of get to taste it and see how it developed. And then to have it in bottle and try it, it's just a really remarkable wine. The color is beautiful. Not something you typically see out of a red varietal. And while it is light in flavor, it's definitely multifaceted. And so that's one of the things that I really, really love about this Counoise. You get those big bursts of fruit up front, but it still has these really great earth tones and spice notes throughout the tasting of it. And I really, really love those. I think this is going to be definitely one that I serve with Thanksgiving dinner this year for sure.
Oh, absolutely. So Doc, Counoise, what do you think?
Well, Bobby, I occasionally they allowed me to taste out of the barrels, and I'll never forget when I was tasting this wine. All three of these, we were tasting them, all of them, and we said, "My goodness, this is special." And John, what are you planning to do with this? And he said, "Prairie roti," and I said, Let's make a single varietal of each one of these. These are grapes that you almost never see. And I think I've never seen Cinsaut or Counoise by itself, Carignan possibly, but usually blended. Let's make a separate individual bottling that because these are incredible expressions of this fruit in Texas soil, climate, and water. And I think, do you remember that? I know you remember that moment, John.
Yes, Doc, I do. Like it was 18 months ago.
Yeah, all the blood drained out of your Prairie Roti program.
No, and that actually gets at the heart and soul of what that collaboration means to me in the cellar is that, we find ourselves in possession of some real gems, and being able to present them to our wine club members, of course, to the general public that comes in, and any of our new friends or returning friends that come back to the winery, that these are grapes that we won't ordinarily see. And that's so when we approached this project with the 3 C's, and everybody thought we meant the 3 C's as in Counoise, Carignan, and Cinsaut. And I would love to think that we were that clever, but we literally were referring to the seascapes on the labels. When Brett first said that, he goes, the 3 C's, as in oceans. And it's like, oh, so we're pretty punny and we didn't even know it. So, but the Counoise, especially for me, to be able to do that, it's a grape I've gotten to taste before, but because of the job that I do, and it's something that most people don't get to taste on its own and see. But the fruit in here is just incredible to me. But the nose, the almost the caramelization of the nose, and
Yes.
a deep floral component that belies the red wine. It's got a deeper floral component than most red wines would ordinarily have. If you closed your eyes and you put this in front of me, I would almost say, well, what white wine am I smelling? But then you taste it, and it's got the tannin structure of something that's much darker than this. I don't know if my camera will do this any justice or not. But so, people frequently, Doc, they come to us and ask if we do a Pinot Noir. And unfortunately, we do not.
It's close.
But yeah, it really, nose-wise, it is pretty close. So, Bobby, when we first introduced this to the tasting room, how hard was it for you guys to convince people to taste it and introduce it to the public?
It was a little difficult because, I mean, a lot of people, like you said, do reference Pinot Noir. They come in, they're like, we want something on the lighter side. It's so hot in Texas. I mean, it's just, we can't really enjoy a nice red wine in Texas. What do you have? So I would immediately steer them to the Counoise because it almost has that Pinot Noir characteristic, and that's almost more of a new world Pinot Noir, kind of a little bit more of that bright fruit instead of that, darker fruits, earthy undertones to it. It's got more of that, fresh, young, kind of a flavor profile to it. And when I push them or steer them into that direction, they're like, oh my gosh, this is exactly what we're looking for summer Texas red. So I think this is kind of, I think what we should steer people to if they're looking for a Pinot Noir in Texas.
I just want to make a comment to the comments that are flowing through on Facebook. Katie Jane, quit trying to steal our thunder.
Yes, it is Farmhouse Grapes.
Yes, it is. It is Farmhouse Grapes, absolutely. So we owe Nick and Anthony and Katie Jane and Tracy a big thank you for all their hard work for these. So it's absolutely wonderful. And I especially Tracy, Anthony, and Nick for having to put up with Katie Jane. So thank you for that too. No, she is a lovely person, and I just love to give her a hard time. So, but Rebecca, how did the wine club receive it?
So that's one of the fun things about our wine club members is that they're always looking for something different. Now they have their favorites. And what was kind of fun is when our members come in, a lot of times they'll get in a rut, and I give them a hard time about it. They always come in and I want a glass of this. I don't want to try a bunch of stuff. I want a glass of this. And it was fun getting to tell them, wait a minute, we have 3 wines that we have never made these varietals by themselves before. You've got to try them. And everyone was very intrigued. And so we ended up having a lot of people try them, and then they ended up buying them. They were just, when you can do something that's different and let somebody try something that they've never had before and they've never experienced before, and it was done so well. This one double gold, if I'm not mistaken, in San Francisco. And
I don't know. I've won so many, I've lost track.
Oh, John, that's why you're in a tie, right?
No, I'm actually in mourning. So
Oh,
I have a funeral to attend after I get off here.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, one of my favorite Hawaiian shirts lost all of its buttons, and I have to go bury it.
Stop. But the wine club really loved seeing these because they were something different, something they'd never gotten to try before. And so that was kind of a fun thing to get to bring up, especially on Saturdays and when we used to be able to have our wine club member tasting room open and have those available and kind of stop people and go, wait. We have something you've never had before, and that was a lot of fun.
It is. And, we just had a question roll up on here too from Kent asks, do you still use these grapes for blending as well? And the answer to that is, of course we do. Doc told me to bottle it all, so I didn't. And we still had some left over for blending. So I mean, I'm sorry, Doc, what were you?
Expected that, yeah.
So Doc, what do you think of this wine now that it has been in bottle for a while? Are you as pleased as you were when you first tried it?
Absolutely, and I think I think it is really Pinot-like, as you say, and this is a brilliant wine to think about with a lot of, all the places where you might drink a Pinot, like with wonderful salmon or smoked salmon, or and all the things that blend so well with rack of lamb.
Mhm.
Think how this would be.
You know, I haven't gotten to the food portion yet, but we can. I can't argue with that one. Rack of lamb, yeah, absolutely.
Or a good fresh pecan.
Oh, no.
That's what.
There it is.
So let's tell everybody these pecans, Pawnee pecans, correct?
They are.
Trish is on. I'm sure she'll correct me. But and also a shout out to Trish. We love you, Trish. So anytime you want to correct me, you can go right ahead. I'll ignore it just like I do Jody. The look at Rebecca. I love you. Joining late, Angela. Cheers. I'm just trying to see all the questions. We've had a few good ones. One of them, Doc, why did you decide to get Counoise for the winery?
Because Nick and Katie Jane said we have about 20 tons of Counoise sitting out here on a truck.
all the great discoveries.
And I said, you know, I wouldn't have planted it, but boy, does it make great wine. So I think we're very lucky that they thought of us and called us, and it's been I hope they like it as much as I do.
I think we do. I think we've pulled together. I would dare go out on a limb and say that they're pretty pleased with how we've treated their fruit. So I love the fact that Farmhouse has actually discovered that Rhone varietals do very, very well. I mean, there are other vineyards out there doing Rhone varietals, and they were certainly not the first, but they have doubled down on some of the more obscure varietals, and they have done tremendous amounts of work to get those to produce, and lots of worrying and fretting. And at the end of the day, it's these Rhone varietals have just done so very well. And I think Texas is a great climate for Rhone varietals overall.
Agree.
Anybody want to add anything? Any notes to the Counoise itself, the flavor, the taste, Bobby?
I definitely get like a little bit of that cranberry and almost kind of a hint of like a little bit of a licorice or an anise sense in there. Mm-hmm. But I think it's great, and get a little bit of that almost that dark chocolate tobacco characteristic from the oak.
Miss Rebecca, might I entice you to give us your opinion on the flavor profile?
Absolutely. So I get the cranberry. I also get a little bit of raspberry on the nose on this one. And then on the back palate, I get a little bit of brown spice that I really, really like. And I think that really, it's odd to say that I feel like the brown spice brightens it, but that's kind of, I think it brightens the end of the palate for me. And I really enjoy that. Kind of kicks it up another notch, and it has a really nice finish that way.
Good.
This has the most perfume. This has violet character on the nose, John. Do you think?
Yes, it does. Violets, violets in quadruplets.
Yeah, it's just amazing. This is one of the most wonderful aromatics in any of our wine.
Well, so the traditional use of Counoise in is it Chateauneuf de Pape that uses Counoise?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So and I was just I'm sorry. I'm trying to remember. And last night I almost said like the wine I had last night, but that was a Gigodas that I had last night, Consommé, which has a similar scent to this. So I don't know if they use it or not, but it has violets like crazy. Mm-hmm. This is absolutely wonderful wine. So pairing, I think we should probably pair as we go, since Doc started it with the rack of lamb. So Rebecca.
I said from the beginning too, I think this goes with my Thanksgiving table. This is going to be beautiful with turkey and stuffing and sweet potatoes and everything on the table. I think it'll just be fantastic. And I'll have some pecan pie, Doc. So there'll be pecans as well.
But do you make your own golden syrup, your inverted syrup, or do you just use corn syrup when you make your pecan pie?
I use corn syrup, John.
Okay, I'll show you how to make inverted syrup. It's a superior pie. So. Rebecca likes it when I mansplain how to cook.
Uh-oh.
So Bobby, what would you pair?
I'm gonna go out on a limb and say Cajun food, jambalaya.
That's a shocker.
Yeah. I would that's what I would kind of go for with this.
Oh, you know, it would do really well with a jambalaya, but I'm going to go for some good old dirty rice, spicy shrimp and dirty rice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
great. Tonight I've taken the liberty, and I hope you all don't mind, but I have paired each of these wines before we started. And so with this particular one, I'm going to pair this with a Monte Cristo White Series label. It's a very light Connecticut shade grown tobacco for a wrapper. It does very well with this. It does very well with a Pinot. So just in case you're curious, that's my pairing. Oh, here. So.
Beautiful.
Okay, Doc, shall we move on to the next one?
Sure.
Okay, so Carignan, we're going to do the second one. So we were discussing this earlier about the order in which to taste these. And initially I thought we would do Counoise, Cinsaut, then Carignan, because Carignan tends to be a little bit more heady. But I went through and tasted them, and I kind of reversed the last two. So we're going to do Carignan in the middle. So if you all want to grab your Carignan, and if you haven't, if you don't want to open all your bottles, and I think I failed to say this earlier, if you want to just have a glass out of one bottle, that's great. Or if you open all three and you want to save them, just put the cork back in whatever portion of the bottle is left and put it in the freezer. We'll go through this at the end again, but it's such a great trick, and I'm so glad that Dr. Becker mentioned this back in March or April, I think it was, and it has worked really well. It'll keep several weeks in the freezer. So
the interesting thing about that, John, is that you and I have both separately had the experience that the wine is better after it's frozen. Mm-hmm. Somehow it's richer. The body is richer, and I don't know why, but I've done it 2 or 3 times, and after you thaw it up, let it come up to an appropriate temperature, thaw it out. Mm-hmm. It's amazingly good.
Well, you are releasing, as the temperature drops rapidly, you are releasing oxygen that's been bound in the wine. So
right.
It acts much the same way. And I can never remember the physical law about an enclosed environment where one will balance the other. If there's more oxygen in the airspace, the liquid will absorb. If there's more in the liquid, it'll give off to the headspace, and that balances the amount of O2 present. So, but that freezing certainly does that. So Rebecca, lead us off with this one. Oh, I'm putting you on the spot. Now I don't think you really feel like you've been put on the spot.
So the Carignan is, well, all 3 of these are ones that are very unique, and unique from pretty much anything else that we make. And that's been a lot of fun going through these. This one has more of an herbaceous and more of an herbaceous note on the nose for me that I really, really love. And I think it's almost, sorry, I also have to drink it. I really think that this is a little bit more sort of chewy or meaty on the mouthfeel and what you're getting on the palate as well. So this one, the Counoise has that great bright fruit and floral up front with the spice. And this one to me has a little bit more of that herbaceousness, a little bit more of that meatiness on the nose and on the palate. Fantastic.
Perfect. So I got a comment / question here. It said from Jennifer Ammons, John, you're looking so fancy, and a question mark on there. And so Jennifer, I'm sorry, I was told earlier today that I need to take these more seriously.
I'm sorry.
So plus I lost one of my favorite Hawaiian shirts today in a tragic buttonless accident. So, so Bobby, what do you think of the wine, sir?
I'll definitely get that more of a peppery nose on it, a little bit more spice on the nose.
Leahy's law. Sorry.
What was that?
No, I shouldn't have said that out loud. Joe Becker's commenting on this.
Oh yeah. We'll take those comments too.
I thought Joe was supposed to be studying. Joe.
Supposed to be studying. And Joe, remember, the liver is right here.
Sorry, Bobby, we interrupted you.
That's okay.
And Joe, if you can't hear somebody really well, raise your middle finger. They speak louder. It works every time.
That turns up the volume, definitely.
Bobby, would you like to talk about the wine?
I'm a little bit more interested in this conversation.
No, Bobby, we need to be serious.
Okay. I gotta put my tie on.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I do get a little bit, a little bit more like a darker fruit characteristic on the palate, almost like a black plum, like a dark plum notes to it. It's I get a nice acidity to it as well. So kind of brings out a little bit of that saliva on the palate. So I think it's great. I think it is a little bit more chewy, like Rebecca said. And yeah, this stands up well.
Doc, Carignan. And actually,
I like the plum note, and I also like the orange zest note in this.
oh yeah, the citrus zest is fantastic.
There's a real orange note here, which is a kind of when you're looking at a red wine, you don't expect orange, but it's definitely there for me.
Yeah,
Beautiful. Both of these are extraordinary aromatics, I think, for wine. Just beautiful.
Mm-hmm. You know, that orange zest is also, I get orange zest, a little bit of pine note. And we talked about this several months ago with this particular wine about, it did remind me of the Stag's Leap District, you know, that little pine edge that most red wines have, but this is indicative of the varietal. You know, we've had a couple of Carignans and they both have that edge, not as much citrus note though, as much orange zest. So Carignan, where did it come from?
Gosh, it's an ancient grape. You know, it's one of the most widely planted. I'm sure it came out of Georgia, I'm guessing, or Phoenicia or someplace like that. It's
you know, it's funny, it may have, and there's been some conjecture about it, but there's an equal theory that it actually originated in northeastern Spain, with the Northeastern Iberian Peninsula.
okay.
And spread from there. But there, you know, it's hard to tell, but I just absolutely love Carignan. You know, I've been fortunate enough to be able to deal with this grape off and on for the last 20 years. And yes, Rebecca, that makes me old. No, you didn't. So what do you think of the Carignan?
Me?
Yes.
I love it. I think it's beautiful. And I think it's be a wonderful with many different dishes. Any place where you would might have an Italian wine. This would be lovely with pastas and with sauces, meat sauces, red sauce.
I get on the very front palate in number 1 and 2, I get rose petal. So Guayacol right off the bat, that rose petal edge. And it's just, that's what fascinates me about this wine.
So I know you guys are talking about where Carignan is originally from, but this Carignan all came from the Ready Vineyard.
Ready Vineyards.
You also probably mention that as well.
Mm-hmm. You know, it did. And, you know, and VJ does, and his son, they do a fantastic job with that vineyard up there. And VJ has been just an absolute joy to deal with. Yes, VJ, even when I frustrate you, I still think you're fun to deal with.
Jon, how long have they been growing Carignan?
You know, I am not really sure. He's been growing it, well, certainly longer than I've been with Becker. So, you know, they've had it for quite some time. You know, and his Carignan actually comes in later in the year. It's one of the last varietals that we get to pick from the high plains. It takes a full season to grow, and it does not come out late. It's not like it's a super late bloomer. It blooms later in the cycle, but it just takes forever. That last third of its ripening cycle seems to take quite a long time. You know, we also get a little Carignan from Drew Talent too. So down here in the Hill Country, and both places said that they have a lot of similar characters as far as fruit characteristic goes. So
so since the Carignan tends to take longer to ripen, I'm guessing that's probably why it was so fantastic in 17, since, like we talked about numerous times, we had those additional weeks of just really great, consistent, warm weather without the rain that allowed it to fully ripen. So that makes sense.
Yeah.
Rebecca, one thing I wanted to say, you and Bobby, was, about the evolution of wine in Texas. If you told me 25 years ago we'd be talking about these three varietals that had won gold medals in San Francisco as being wonderful Texas wines, I would have said, I don't think so. This is really, really interesting for me to see this and to taste it, be part of it.
Well,
So,
and I think it goes back to that whole question that we inevitably always get, which is, so what's the wine of Texas? What does Texas do well? And the problem is that our answer is a lot. There are so many varietals that do remarkably well. And this is, for Texas, a fairly young industry as far as the wine industry goes as a whole. And so we're still finding these fabulous varietals and different wines that do wonderfully, not just in Texas as a whole, but also in different areas of Texas, depending on the weather. And I think that's something that's quite remarkable as well. And it's been really neat to see just in the short time that I've been around.
It has been nice. So, Bobby, I had a question for you, and it's kind of a blanket question and a follow-up to how hard was it to introduce the Counoise. When you start talking about the Carignan and overall the 3 Cs, how well received are they after people taste them? I know there's some that like and some don't, but overall, what was your impression? Was it an easy fit into the profile, or was it a bit of an uphill challenge?
It's kind of an uphill challenge because so many people are like, set in their like Tempranillo, their Malbec, their paradigm of these like, familiar varietals that they're like, well, I don't really know what to get, out of these. And I don't, know where to kind of navigate. So it's kind of hard to steer people to purchase something when they're like, it's kind of out of their paradigm. So you just you have to kind of gear them to what they're known for, what they've kind of thought about. So with these 3 being in the Rhone region, I'm saying, like usually it's like GSM blends, they're usually in like GSM, but they stand alone by themselves just fine. They do great. And try to get them, like saying like, hey, this is okay for Texas weather, because I mean, you can't have a thick, chewy cab in the middle of Texas summer. It just doesn't work. So these, they can, end up chilling them and serving them like at a cooler degree, cooler temperature, and they taste wonderful. My brother-in-law this weekend was out, and he was like, "Wow, y'all have released some lighter wines recently," and I said, "Yeah, which they're great. They're really easy drinking. They're great for summer, and you can even chill them and serve them chilled, and people actually usually have a pretty good response with that."
So I want to get back to Doc, about the Carignan itself, because I did not ask you, Dr. Becker, the first experience that you all had with Carignan at the winery. Do you know approximately when you first started using the Carignan?
I think we've had small amounts off and on over the last 10 years, and intermittently, not every year. And I think we've never made a varietal like this. The other astonishing thing about this, John, is all these were virtually in oak for 2 years, or the better part of 2 years, right?
Yes,
they were treated like very serious wines, and these particular varieties don't get that treatment very often. I mean, they're usually no oak, if any. And
right. Yeah, yeah. I'm not really sure why we treated them so seriously, because I'm apparently incapable of being serious. Yeah. Yeah. Hey, don't worry, Rebecca. I won't let it go.
I know.
No matter how many times I watch the movie Frozen.
Okay, so here's the deal. Dr. Becker,
I'm going to hear this at the winery tomorrow.
This is what happened. I was on a panel discussion on Tuesday with the Texas Hill Country Winery Association.
Well, he knows.
And it was brought up that maybe our winemaker comes off as a little nuts on our virtuals. And I said, yes, that's how we get good ratings.
He also comes off with a lot of gold medals from San Francisco. You
Yes.
can mention that to him. And
It's how we get ratings.
that's right.
Well, I have to say about the Carignan, and thank you, Rebecca, for allowing me to give you an unfair ration of crap.
I gave you a lot of ribbon last week. It's okay.
So, plus, I know your mom's watching, and I want to make sure I'm nice to you. But no, the Carignan itself is a wine that I've enjoyed, and one of the first Carignans I had as a single standalone varietal came from a very small West Dry Creek winery by the name of Frick, F-R-I-C-K. In case anybody's interested in looking it up, they're a very small producer, and this gentleman had been producing grapes since the early 70s, or wines. But and I had an opportunity to talk to Mr. Frick about it, and he was probably, for such a brief conversation, molded such an intense view of what it means to make wine and what it means to be engaged with your winemaking when people talk to you about it. There really isn't any top secrets about how to make great wine. It's a ton, no pun intended, a ton of hard work, paying attention to details, and certainly, having a good science background helps, or having a great science background person who has their master's degree in vitinology running your lab. That helps even more. So, and don't worry, Rachel, I'm not going to say your name out loud.
I already did, so it's
I know, right? We'll get the looks tomorrow. We'll need to buy her another thing of Starbucks gift cards. But anyway, the Carignan to me is a backbone building wine that you can blend. But when you find something like the 2017 and it stands alone, Doc was right. We needed to get these out. These are a great way to introduce people to the fact that there are over 400, vinifera or European wine varietals, and we know a handful at best. So that's my speech about Carignan.
And I want to correct what John said. What he said is true about winemaking. It's true, and unrelated. It's like it's art. How many people do art well? Very few. And there are other elements here that John is not talking about that have to do with taste and memory for taste and memory of tasting other wines. And it's so you could give Julie, you could put Julia Child and me in the same kitchen. Give us all the same cooking utensils, the same things to cook, and what we'll get will be very different. And I have a lot of scientific background and so forth. Great winemaking is an art. Thank you, John.
See? I'm an artist.
It has a little bit to do with scientific background. It has a lot to do with the fruit that we've gotten, say, from farmhouse and places like that. But after that, it's not so common. And it's very hard to put your finger on it. What makes a great poem a great poem? That it's a great poem is a poem that can't be said better in any other way. And a great wine is a translation of the fruit such that it can't be made better. And that is the trick. And that defies description for me beyond what I just said.
You are absolutely right. And
talking about you, John.
Yeah, no, I get it.
Well, I think that was a self-portrait that you did, right, John?
It was. And it's really, really hard to be serious for more than 30 minutes. I can't do it.
Well, you've got a tie up, Josh. This is good.
Okay, so guys, preparing for Carignan, which is, we get that it'll go with your turkey dinner. No, Rebecca, I'm going to come to you last. I want you to come up with a doozy. So Doc, besides pecans, what would you pair with?
Well, Trish's pecans are hard to beat. I'll tell you that. And Trish, I don't want you to know we're running out of pecans, but anyway.
I think the question is yes.
For me, this is a great Spanish wine.
Mm-hmm.
Like of course the grapes are different everywhere, but the Carignan is a much planted grape in Spain, and I think any Spaniard winemaker would love to have this put down on his table. And so with that would go any of the great dishes of Spain. And,
I,
certainly,
you know, I'm
Flor-
hoping next
I'm
summer
sorry.
we get to go to Bilbao and over to San Sebastian.
That
and
could be
have some
good.
tapas. Yeah,
That's on our list. I hope so.
yeah,
If the virus will let us.
exactly. Bobby, what would you pair with this wine, sir?
Personally, I was thinking an eggplant parmesan with the Carignan.
Yeah.
So.
You know, somebody, Angela, will be very happy to hear that.
Oh
yeah. Not just your wife, but we have a fan, Angela.
Yes.
So, Rebecca, what would you pair?
So actually keeping with some of the things that Doc had mentioned, I was thinking a fabulous paella or a bolognese. I think both of those would go really, really well.
Oh, you
Yeah, great.
You had me at bolognese. Well, I'm going to go ahead and pair this with a Habano Perdomo, medium body. You know, it's a 60 ring size. Very nice, very mellow. Will go very well with this. So that's my pairing. Can you guess the theme?
Seeming to tie together.
Yeah. Well, it all ties together, Bobby.
Yeah. There it is.
Okay, I'm sorry. I told you 30 minutes was my limit.
Yeah.
And apparently I didn't even do that. So anyway, shall we go on to the Cinsaut?
Excited about the Cinsaut. The Cinsaut is so different.
Yeah. Well, I want everybody to give it a swirl, a sniff, and a taste. Oh man, I have to tell you right now, the perfume in this has been decanted for just over an hour. Doc, would you lead us off on this one, sir?
Boy, it's leading me off, I think.
Right. Yeah.
It's very powerful. This is one of the great grapes of the Rhone region. One of the great components of the wonderful rosés of the southernmost regions of Provence, along with Mourvedre.
Oh yeah.
And this has a lot of rose aromatics for me.
It's funny. I get that rose, but I got an initial whiff. It had been sitting for a bit, so I just gave it a quick swirl. And I had an initial whiff of an extremely ripe citrus. And it blew off. Extremely ripe citrus.
Yeah.
But it blew off right away. It just was there for a second.
I get wonderful roses from this.
Yeah. So Bobby, what do you get aromatic wise?
Yeah, it's that floral characteristic, that perfume. It just is so strong. Like I'm totally there with the rose. The fruit, I'm getting a little bit of like some of the raspberry notes to it. But it's amazing.
So the $100 question, Bobby, is what chemical component gives you raspberry?
Chemical
the artificial raspberry. No. I mean,
yeah, I know that one. We'll talk about that one tomorrow. Yeah. I honestly, I do not know.
It's the same one that gives you blackberry, blueberry, and oddly enough, tobacco. Yep.
So what chemical?
I'll let you think about it, and then I'll answer you just as soon as I look at my cheat sheet. So Rebecca, what do you get aromatic wise?
Aromatic wise, I definitely get the rose petal roses. I also get a really, really ripe red plum.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I get a bit of a Santa Rosa plum, a very, very small but extremely intense plum edge. I can see that. That's very nice. But I love Cinsaut. Cinsaut is just to me, it's one of those jewels that you love finding. It's like you've opened up something, you're going through it, and you're like, oh, I forgot I had this. A few barrels. Let's hide it from Dr. Becker. So Doc Cinsaut, what do you think? And why did we get it at the winery?
Well, because Drew planted it primarily, and but you know, I wanted to make the great. I wanted to see how close we could get to the great rosés of Bandol, and they're a blend of Mourvèdre and Cinsaut. And I thought it would be. We have Mourvèdre available from Texas. We have now Cinsaut, and I thought it would be fun to blend them together and make. And you've done it, John. Actually, I've tasted it. So that was my thought originally about Cinsaut. I didn't realize it would be this good by itself.
Yeah, it's this is this Cinsaut. This is why I chose to do it last. It has got depth of aromatic depth and the flavor that's just broad and deep as well. So the flavor profile, what do you get, Doc, when you taste it?
Just to say, just a generic, incredibly rich fruit note, but more specifically, some strawberry, maybe strawberry preserve, strawberry jam note, and then a wonderful acidity. So it's not just sweet, and there's no sugar in this.
No.
This is all about capturing the fruit, and boy, it's here.
So
I don't know what others think about the fruit on the palate. I'm basically tasting Trish's pecans.
Yeah. Okay, Trish, he's got a pecan problem, and we need an intervention.
I feel like he just has like a satchel of pecans that he just
does
with him throughout the day.
You can't see it. It's
only when I taste these wines.
It is. It's a giant bowl of pecans. He won't show it, but it's probably like that deep. And
it's not that big. I mean, but it's.
I was thinking
he's down to 4.
So, I was thinking a Pez dispenser.
Yeah, a Pez dispenser of pecans. Yeah, right. So Bobby, what do you get profile-wise, flavor?
Definitely that plum. I'm getting that ripe red plum notes to it. Again, that bright acidity as well. It's just those tannins are just really nice, almost jammy characteristic to it. You can definitely chewy as well. So I really enjoy this.
Red plum jam, maybe almost, or red plum preserves. Yeah, we talk about plumminess of wines a lot, but never this brilliant. John, what do you think?
You know, if I was smelling it blind, Doc, I would hedge my bet that this was more Zin-like than Cinsaut.
That's a thought. Yeah,
I could get that. Yeah, but
it's got, when I taste it, it definitely has that Cinsaut character. There's an underpinning, that nice minerality that's underpinning that just makes it so very pleasant. 15.2% alcohol by volume.
Well done, sir.
Yeah. Balance, people. It's about balance. It's kind of like, imagine a fat guy on a tightrope over the Grand Canyon.
All I have is a image of a bear in a tutu on a little mini.
Unicycle. Yeah. Perfect.
Yeah.
I think Dr. Becker is now writing my pink slip.
John, one of the things that I think all 3 of these wines really exemplify, and Doc, hit on it just a minute ago, is the wonderful fruit extraction that you're able to get on completely dry wines. And as someone who was not a wine drinker when I first started working at Becker, and I didn't really know how to properly describe what I liked, a lot of times when people love that fruitiness, they automatically associate fruit with sweet.
Right.
And it's not sugar. It's this fruit that you're able to extract even when the wine is completely dry, and then also has these wonderful depths of flavor on the finish and as the palate goes through. And I think that it's just remarkable. And I think all 3 of these wines are really great at just kind of absolutely wonderful examples of how you're able to do that. Could you explain how you're able to do that, sir?
Yes, yes, I
Thank you,
could,
Ron.
but I think Rachel's listening and she'll steal my job if she knows how to do it. So, yeah, there's that.
There goes the thunder.
No, no, it doesn't. You know what she's doing right now? She's like, hey, you gave it to me in a big long spreadsheet. What do you mean I'm going to steal it? Well, I hate talking a lot about serious things because I think it bores the hell out of everybody. But in a brief overview, and yes, Rebecca, I will answer your question. Santa Claus is real, and fruit does exist in red wine. The idea behind here, when you're treating that grape, so it's very, very important to view the grape in its natural environment, and then when it comes in to the winery, to make a second or even tertiary quality assessment, bin by bin or overall grape load. And a lot of that has to do with when it's going through the process. And this will make no sense to anybody who has never seen grapes being processed at a winery. It is the messiest thing you'll ever see. And the only thing that's going to go through your mind at that point in time is, the hell do you make wine with this mess? It is sorting the grapes out from its stems, getting the rachises away, as much of the mog or material other than grapes away from the grapes and into the tank as quickly as possible under prime conditions, as much as you possibly can. Everything will go against you at this point in time. Everything that can go wrong will go wrong. It's not just Murphy's Law, it's the law of the winery. So when you get through all of that, the idea is then to taste and smell every single day and adjust what you're doing according to that. I don't think there's any way to give you 24 years of experience in a 15-minute dissertation. There's certainly things that you need to know. Temperature control is one of them, types of yeast that you use, reductive environment versus aerobic versus anaerobic environment. How do you keep the structural and phenolic integrity of the wine? How do you keep those two parallel and in sync together? These are all the things that you have to worry about, and you cannot do it.
No, John,
grapes.
for me, it's just finding out where the barrels are.
Yes, I know. and unfortunately, we've computerized everything so anybody can find it now.
No.
I'm looking at that bin trace app right now.
Yeah, right.
Bobby, I'm coming to you, Bobby.
Yes, sir.
Get the feed.
Going back to the alcohol, the previous one, the Carignan, was I think the least amount of alcohol in all of our red wines was about 12.9, but the flavor profile on it, it's phenomenal. And then this 15.2, it's not hot. You can't get that heat out of it. It doesn't burn at all. And like you said, balance is key.
Yep. Balance is key. And not to make light of your question, Rebecca, it's half of me not answering is I don't know how to answer that complex of a question in such a brief amount of time. I don't think I could tell you any given morning that I'm on my way to the winery what I'm about to do and how, and why I need to do it. I have an idea. I have a plan. I can tell you every day has a plan. And that plan ends right when you open that first door. And then you're hit with what's actually going on. But it's just protecting the grape and letting Mother Nature take its course is the best guide. And sounds so clichéic in the wine industry. And I am the one secretly outside of the public view when I start hearing things like, tastes like great saddle leather with a little bit of, I don't know, just like horse sweat, saddle leather, and
Southern Baptist, John.
Yeah.
A whiff of Southern Baptist.
Oh, okay. Why am I the one getting blamed for all the craziness?
It's half my family, John, so there's what we're going to do.
I don't remember you introducing the swirly straws in the beginning of the
Right?
Very true, Bobby.
Very true, Bobby. Anyway, that's awesome. 2017 also, Rebecca, was primarily responsible for this brilliance. We had the best vintage, period. Stop, no work further way to go.
And John, it was a great year for the church.
It was indeed Dr. Becker. Just ask Joel Osteen.
That's right. He didn't let him in, because he may be unwashed. And there you go.
Hey, rein it
Wow.
in, folks. Rein it in.
So on that 2017 note, that's actually what I thought about before we came into all this, was that 2017, that was just, we've hit over and over and over again that Harvey was just, it was key with producing such great grapes that year.
John, are you gonna make it?
Remembering my Hawaiian shirt, and it's really
I'm surprised he's still in his chair.
Oh, okay.
God, you told me not to be too serious.
He hasn't taken a lap yet.
Yeah, no, I haven't. Okay, so I think we need to pair this wine with a little, I don't know, humility.
Cons?
Rebecca, what would you pair this wine with? Not that you need humility. What would you pair this wine with?
Oh gosh, the Cinsau's different. I actually, and this is very not where anybody else is going to go with this, I don't think. I want to pair this with a salad that has feta and pecans. And spinach, feta, and pecans. That's
what about roasted duck on that salad?
Foie gras.
We'll always add duck to it.
Yeah, duck does very well. Doc, what would you pair with his wine?
Corn flakes. I mean, I can't I think anything, John.
Oh goodness. Well,
I'll tell you what this is really good for is battling the pandemic and all the depression and all the sadness and hardship of that. I hope this moment is seen that way. And,
absolutely.
Yes. Yeah. A little levity. Okay, Bobby, what would you pair with this?
So, doing a little research, I saw that that escargot was traditionally paired with the Cinsaut. So I would love to try that, but if not, one day, salmon. Definitely a nice smoked salmon would go well with this.
Carignan or escargot. We around these parts we call them wallfish.
So I had the pleasure of going on the first wine club member cruise through Europe that we went on, Dr. Becker, and I ate snails on that trip. What wine did we pair with that? Did we have Cinsaut at that luncheon?
No.
No? You'll have to take me back so I can try snails.
That was a wonderful trip on the Seine.
Yes.
To Honfleur, and
that was
we had lunch in the restaurant where Julia Child fell in love with French food.
Wow.
A restaurant that had been operating for 300 or 400 years without ever moving.
It's the restaurant that they tried to position in the movie Julia, where she is there eating the fish and butter sauce in the copper pan. That's the yeah.
Boy,
that was fun. Okay, so somebody suggested roasted pork with this, and another person, Charles Gage, grilled Turkish kofta kebab dinner.
Ooh.
That aromatic, very
Yeah.
beautiful. Yeah, absolutely. Lamb would go very, very well with this. Absolutely, in most forms. And please don't make fun of me, Rebecca. I know that my tasting notes often use lamb, but it's a song that keeps going through my head.
Of our tasting notes include lamb.
Yeah, but that song, it just keeps going through my head every time I'm writing the tasting notes. Mary had a little lamb. No. Okay. For this wine, because it is very, very rich, I'm going to go ahead and break my initial pairing, and I'm going to go ahead with a box pressed Oliva V Series Milano darker tobacco, aged 5 years. It's very, very rich, very oily. It would go very well with this. That is,
Love that pairing.
yeah, yeah.
Our question here is, this wine is exceptionally rich,
Mhm.
and both aromatically and because of the fruit. What would you compare another wine that resembles this that you've had?
Ooh.
Maybe some of the Zens, the lighter Zens.
My initial thought is to head to Rioja, or actually down to the Priorat.
And some of the so how about Garnacha in the Priorat?
Yeah.
Garnacha would be like this. But
Yes.
this is really a rare taste for me. Seriously, it's incredibly concentrated, I think.
No, Trish, I actually like them. I don't just chew on them. Talking about my tie.
Chew on your ties a lot, John?
Yeah, well, you dunk it in the wine. See?
Thought I saw teeth marks.
Exactly. Oh, goodness. Yeah, Doc, it does have an incredible richness that belies its simplicity.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a wonderful wine. Absolutely. So, Rebecca, what are we doing next week? What's our next week's categories for
So
wine?
next week is week 33. And we have some interesting sort of options that you don't get at the winery. We've got some that you don't get in distribution. We've kind of went back to combining those two different worlds for next week. So we have the 2017 Unida which is 50% Coppola and 50% Becker.
Mhm.
We have the 2018 Claret, which is in distribution. And now I can't remember the third wine.
That would be the Main Street Cab.
Thank you. Thank you, Bobby.
Thanks,
The 2015 Cabernet Sauvignon, that's our Main Street exclusive cab. So those three wines are actually really awesome because if you come out to the winery, none of those are available out at the winery.
Well,
So,
and they're all cab-based blends.
yes.
So we're going to see what Cabernet can do for you. So, Doc, any final words, sir?
No, I think let's all be careful, go slow, protect ourselves, our families, our friends,
Mhm.
and let's escape from this pandemic.
Absolutely. Well, I want to offer to everybody, thank you again for joining us, and thank you for putting up with our antics. And apologies to anybody who didn't like my Joel Osteen comment. Still thought it was funny. Bobby, thanks for joining us. Rebecca, thanks for trying to rein us in. And Dr. Becker, as always, a pleasure, sir. Thank you for allowing me to make wine here in Texas. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
So, cheers to everyone out there. Good health, good wine. We'll see you next week.